I think the role of the private sector is absolutely crucial in the sense that they're used to the idea of providing consumers and customers and people with products that people want. And I think one of the problems with past efforts in sanitation has been that we've focused largely on providing what we as technicians or government officials think people should have. And I think that's one of the reasons why access has become so low, because the options that have been offered to people are not the ones that people actually want or can afford. I think the private sector is much better able to adapt to those demands and find out what people want and can afford. I think perhaps because they're not trying to satisfy a demand. Their demand or their requirement is to expend a certain budget on a certain topic in a certain time. They want to spend money and they want to produce results, to show tangible results. And those tangible results, as people found out in Maharashtra, they can be hundreds of thousands of latrines that are built. But the point is there hasn't been the effort in actually demanding that those latrines, building the demand for those latrines, so that later investigations by, again, the government of Maharashtra found that over half of those latrines were being used as storage sheds or as tool sheds, but not being used as sanitation facilities. But that was the result of the government's natural inclination towards meeting a target. I mean, one of the main findings as a result is that people do indeed want sanitation, but often not for the reasons that the public sector or government officials or indeed NGOs will attribute to them. People want sanitation for convenience, for privacy, for dignity, for comfort and convenience. That's why people want sanitation. In fact, if I'm honest, that's why I want sanitation. And the argument about public health is perhaps the reason why the public sector is involved. It's why we and the World Bank put some effort into trying to promote sanitation, because we see the external effects. It's why government's involved. But from the purely household level, the concern is much more about much more personal needs. And the private sector responds to that and can say, the way to sell sanitation is to point out the advantages in terms of comfort and convenience, rather than to stress some abstract statistical probability that the incidence of diarrhea in the family might be reduced by 25% or 50%. I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect households to pay for the sanitation facilities that they enjoy on their property. The hardware part should be financed by the household. They're the ones who benefit directly from that. But the stimulation of the demand, activities such as hygiene promotion, it's not reasonable to expect people to pay for hygiene promotion. It is reasonable for the government to intervene in that case and provide work perhaps with the private sector, as we're encouraging in the hand washing initiative, work with the private sector and the public sector to promote hygiene and indeed to promote the marketing of sanitation. That there needs to be an investment in marketing, there needs to be an investment in demand surveys to find out what will be most effective in selling sanitation. I don't think, I mean, it seems unlikely to me that an individual household, particularly in the developing world, with all of the pressures on their financial resources, are likely to say, there's a WHO guideline out that is the reason why I should invest in ecological sanitation. No. But other advantages, if they can see an economic benefit, if they can see an agricultural benefit, then they will invest in that. And each technology has a niche. It has a market niche. We live in a world of segmented markets. Again, that is an idea the private sector is very familiar with. The fact that if you want to sell soft drinks, you have to think, well, there's all sorts of soft drinks that you can sell, and some people are willing to pay an awful lot of money for mineral water, and other people are not. It's the same in sanitation, and it's not a case where one size fits all, where everyone's willing to buy exactly the same toilet. The same thing, I think, in terms of sanitation. I believe there is. I believe there's certainly a demand in terms of dignity and privacy. I don't think anybody is comfortable practicing open defecation. And one of the remarks that's come up in different continents, talking to people in villages in Africa and in Asia, people being very honest and saying, well, we used to go to the bush and now there is no bush. All of my neighbors live around me now, so there is nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. I think people do want sanitation. I just think we have to be realistic about the reasons and not preach what people should have, but rather respond to what people do want. I think that one has to recognize that the World Bank is in fact many separate institutions, and we have many different departments trying to do different types of projects. The Environment and Natural Resources Group is probably much more likely to be concerned about that than the group in which I'm most closely involved, which is in the Infrastructure Department. More importantly, it's important to recognize the concerns of the bank are actually those of our clients. If clients come to us with those concerns, we can respond to them. If clients, and the issue becomes actually, what is the client demand for concern about those issues. And if clients see that phosphorus recovery can become a source of economic benefit to them, then they will, and they're informed about that, they can make that demand, and it'll be certainly introduced in the projects that, in fact, our clients design. We don't design them, our clients do. We respond to demand.